Good morning, and welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. on this beautiful morning, if this is the kind of weather you like. And my name is Peter Holland, and I'm a member of the worship program team coordinating the service this morning. Our speakers will be two of our members, and this is one of an ongoing series of invitations that we have given to our members to join us and tell us how their thinking has evolved, how their minds have changed, and what they have done with this one wild and beautiful life. So we have with us this morning Mark Beverage and Janet Kunze, who will be speaking to us later. We're fortunate also to have the music led for us by Carol Flower, who has been our pianist for some time, our regular pianist, and we're grateful for that. The children are actually going to be taken downstairs after a while, or invited to go downstairs, where they will be helped in their work with by Laurel Troutwine, who is sitting in the back. And so Laurel will be taking the children with her downstairs. So you're welcome here, whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been a member for a long time. Welcome. Whatever faiths you have known and whatever journey you have been on that brings you here, welcome. We're glad that you have found us, and we hope that the questions that you hold, the truths that you seek, and the sorrows you have known, and the joy that has filled your heart over time will be something that we will receive and bless. So whoever you are, whoever you love, you're welcome here. We begin with announcements before our prelude, and I have one announcement about the banquet, which is the sometimes called the soup kitchen, that we are going to be the congregation who's going to serve that on Thursday evening. And we're looking for a couple of names. I have a sign-up sheet here, but we're really only looking for one name for the sign-up. So that will be on Thursday evening from 5 o'clock until about 7, I guess. Any other announcements? Anybody? Eric has an announcement, and TJ.
So, can I go?
Yeah.
So every Wednesday, Sandrine and I are opening our house for potluck dinner. Everybody is welcome to come from 6 to 8 p.m.
Yes.
And every Wednesday. So anytime, anybody's welcome. You can ask us after service about
this is kind of reviving a tradition in some ways. We used to have a thing called a circle supper. Yes. So thank you.
Thank you. Most members should have received a packet in the mail or been given something out last week with a vote or a ballot. Here's a ballot box. It'll be on the little table by the door. You can either put it in there, send in the one that you got, or next Sunday, you say, I forgot, could I have another one? Because next Sunday will be the mid-year meeting, and we'd like to have them all back in by then.
Is that the announcement you were going to make, John?
I was just going to announce the mid-year meeting is next Sunday after the service, and we will be voting on those issues that you sent the ballot on. So it'll be something for the entire congregation to think about.
And just by way of announcement, Alan, our minister today, is, I think, speaking at the fellowship in Okoboji. So he's had hopefully a nice trip in the countryside this morning. Harold. the chalice, let us hear these words from Annie Dillard. We're here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. First song is number 12 in the Grey Hymn book, and it's called O Life That Maketh All Things New. So stand as you feel able and join us in singing this hymn number 12. First reading, which is responsive, is number 592 in the Great Hymn Books. And this one is by William Ellery Channing, a well-known Unitarian minister of old. So I'm going to read the bold type, and if you respond together with the italicized, we'll get through this, which is quite a long reading. It's called the free mind. I call that mind free, which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness.
Which passes life, not in asking what it shall drink, but in hungering, thirsting, and seeking after righteousness.
I call that mind free, which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith.
Which opens itself to light, whensoever it may come, which receives new truth as an angel from heaven.
I call that mind free, which is not passively framed by outward circumstances, and is not the creature of accidental influence.
Which discovers everywhere the radiant signature of the infinite spirit, and in them finds help to its own spiritual enlargement.
I call that mind free which protects itself against the usurpations of society which does not cower to human opinion.
Which refuses to be the slave or tool of the many or of the few, and guards its empire over itself as nobler than the empire of the world.
I call that mind free which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past, nor live on its old virtues.
But which listens for new and higher emotions of conscience, and rejoices to pour itself forth in fresh and higher exertions.
I call that mind free which sets no bounds to its love, which wherever they are seen delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering.
Which recognizes in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children, and offers itself up a willing sacrifice to the cause of humankind.
I call that mind free which has cast off all fear but that of wrongdoing, and which no menace or peril can enthrall.
Which is calm in the midst of tumults, and possesses itself, though all else be lost.
I have chosen a story for all ages that comes from a book of a person that I used to study under, a rabbi called Ed Friedman, who lived in Bethesda, Maryland, and had a counseling practice. And his story is an address that he says was delivered to the National Association of Family Therapists by Cinderella's stepmother. And this is the story that she told to the conference about what happened in their house, the story of which I'm sure you are familiar with. On behalf of all the stepmothers of every age everywhere, I want to thank you. I am tempted to seize this opportunity to get even. I've decided, therefore, simply to tell it as it was, or at least as it was according to my perception. I first met Cinderella's father at a dance given by the king. I had just gone through a year of mourning after my husband had died, and he too was a widower. I was struck immediately by the man's gentleness, his doleful demeanor, which sparked pity in my heart. He seemed quite intelligent, yet quiet, and talked a great deal about his daughter, who he obviously adored. And then the very next evening, he came round to my house with a basket of fruit and flowers. My daughters, who were home that evening, giggled, gasped, and discreetly went out to play. Well, when he took me on a walk, I tried to point out that we hardly knew one another, but he was very persistent. Generally, the last thing you would call me is impulsive. But I was lonely. He made a good living and would provide security for me and my children. And maybe I was just flattered. Little did I know how soon that attention would cease. As soon as we moved in, I went about setting things to rights. I do believe that order is essential to any fruitful life, though when it comes to kitchens, there I admit to erring on the side of meticulousness. My daughters raised in this atmosphere were naturally tidy, and perhaps it was a mistake on my part to expect that Cindy, I should mention, by the way, that we never ever called her Cinderella. She wouldn't hear of it. It wasn't folksy enough. Would have exactly the same attitudes. But no, she had none of the same attitudes. In fact, I don't think she had ever actually held a broom before. I tried at first to persuade her that this was important for her own upbringing. But she would throw a temper. Often she would go to her room where she seemed to have an infinite capacity for sitting and looking out of the window. Sometimes, when my own daughters, who were naturally upset at having to do all the work, would taunt her, and she would reply, "You just wait and see. Someday I won't have to live here any longer. Someday," she would say, "my prince will come." Things got worse. I told Cindy's father that I would have to take my daughter and leave if he was unwilling to support me in the disciplines that I exercised. He agreed that Cindy would have to obey me. He was never around, of course. So all she did instead was start running to my husband's sister. It seemed as though all Cindy would have to do is wish for something, and there was her aunt making it happen. Once again, things started to become intolerable, and that's when the other flake began to show up. He had nothing to recommend him, no trade, no goals, nor any idea what he would be doing with his life. Let alone the next day, he was just another dreamer and another charmer. Boy, were they made for one another. On the surface, so kind and gentle and pleasing, always saying the right things. Well, one night Cindy and her charming prince took off and didn't come back. I didn't know how they expected to survive. And then the most amazing thing comes out. It turns out that he really was a prince, the king's only son. Evidently, they had been having a lot of trouble with him. He hadn't been minding his studies. He was sneaking certain herbs that were generally forbidden in the custom, and had gotten into bad company. Well, the next thing I hear, Cindy and the prince are getting married in a big royal affair, and the prince is taken to wearing fine clothes. He's running around saying how Cindy was the best thing that ever happened to him. She sent some servants back to the house for her things, and we never did see her again. You don't think we were invited to the wedding. Worst was yet to come. For the palace began to put out a story of a great romance, and this is the story you will have heard. How the prince had not been seen for a long time because he was actually searching for his one and only. How he had found her in a hovel, and pardon me, this is the part that really hurts, how she had been almost a slave in her father's house. In all events, we couldn't show ourselves in the market after that for a long time. And finally, to give my daughters a better chance, we moved to another town. On looking back, however, I don't know if I would have done things differently. I still believe in the values of energy, persistence, and order. Maybe I took on too much responsibility. I should let her flake out all the way. Let her flake out all the way. After all, she was my husband's daughter. Or maybe I should have waited longer till I remarried. One thing I did learn, however, I shouldn't have backed off each time Cindy went to tell father and aunt how mean I was. I should have gotten meaner. You know, I think I was the only one who ever took a stand with it. But given the overall absence of limits, that's the only thing she remembered about me. And maybe, as one of my daughters says, that's why she and a prince persisted in that myth about my meanness, for it was probably the only way they could really live with one another happily ever after. And so, in relationship to the Unitarian principles, that's a free and responsible search. So we're going to sing The Children Out, number 413 in the grey hymn books, and the words are written in the program. So Carol will play The Children Out as we sing.
Go now and ease, go now and ease, may the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now is a time in our service when we have found that it's helpful for members to come and share the ups and downs of our lives. The practice of taking a stone out of the pile here and holding it. Tell us who you are and what your joy and concern might be, and then place the stone in the water chalice, like that, where the ripples symbolically go out to all of us. So if you have joy and concern and would like to voice it to people present today, please feel free to come forward.
Hi, I'm JC. Yesterday I came to church here with Dan and Carol. We were able to play a bunch of music together, and it was really a highlight of my week, or maybe even my month. It was a lot of fun.
Morning, my name's Nelson. This stone is for a young man named Maddox. And Maddox is 7 years old. He's a first grader at Harvey Dunn Elementary School, and once a week I've been selected to go and visit with him while he looks at his lunch and talks nonstop. The counselor that lined me up with him told me his main issues are he forgets everything and he talks all the time. And I'm going to have to tell her how good she is with her assessments. But he's a little dandy, and I always look forward to seeing him. And we play a game, and I listen to his wild imagination, and give him a little fist bump and tell him to see you next week. The rest of the school year, that'll be a once-a-week program for me and Maddox.
Hi, my name's Dan Reiki, and I second that, JC. That was really fun for me, too. We're going to have fun with that music thing coming up here next month. So that's my joy, and my sorrow is to hear that 10 people were killed down in Monterey Park at a dance studio yesterday in California, and it just, in Los Angeles, made my heart sad. So there's a happy stone for beautiful music, and Carol, thank you for your putting the music for us. And then I think a big one here for all those lives affected by that unnecessary shooting in California. So.
Hi, my name is Edie Ann Hafke. Everybody calls me Edie, so you can call me Edie. I would appreciate that. my, my, my hope is that our friend will be able to find a place to be able to stay until she's done for, the rest of her life or something. So we're just hoping that that will happen in time, and we're just grateful that she's doing okay for now. But it just would be nice if she had a place to stay until she's ready to go. And my request too is that Jenny and myself are looking for a ride back home from the banquet. We volunteered to do the serving and stuff. So if there's like another server or cook or whoever's going out there to be able, that lives in our neck of the wood. We live near 14th and Cliff, so it's not too far from there. So if anybody's on the way home to get from there to over there, that would be so much appreciated. Thank you. Huh? Oh,
And it's her birthday today.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Edie. Happy birthday to you.
Well, as I put a final stone in for the thoughts that have not been expressed but are in our hearts, I want to also mention a couple of things that happen in this service that perhaps go unnoticed. And they're sort of joys for me, and that's when Jaslyn and Terry have been recording the services, and we have a camera and things, and so we have things online. And in the basement we have the food that has been prepared and the coffee by Janice and Scott. So thank you. And so I put this final stone in and spend a little time just reflecting on our own joys and concerns. We're going to sing another hymn from the hymnal, and so please feel free to stand as you are able and join us. Now, for a person like me who is sort of less comfortable with the language of God, I have to say that one of the things that I always think about when I'm singing hymns like this, the worship of God, is the AA practice of having a higher power to search for. And I think that in that spirit, I sing this hymn, number 285.
Shield and defender, the ancient of days.
which is number 599 in the Graham book, is much shorter. And it's perhaps one that we can just say together as I lead us through it. It is from the Sikh tradition, number 599. Let us say it together.
Why do you go to the forest in search of the divine? God lives in all and abides with you too. As fragrance dwells in a flower or reflections in a mirror, so the divine dwells inside of everything. Seek therefore in your own heart.
I invite Mark, first of all, to come and share his thoughts on how his thinking has evolved. And then Janet will follow after Mark's done.
I did make a few notes here, because I tend to get carried away. I get carried away, just throws out my head. So my first experience in life that I can remember was a tornado. And I was standing in a house over here on Cleveland Avenue and watching the roof lift up, and I could see the sky above the wall, and between the wall and the roof. That was a bit of an awakening, except that not really too much happened. The roof came off the house, but we didn't get any rain, and nothing was removed from the house. Everything was okay. Within a few weeks, we put a new roof on and moved back in. That's a bit of the story of my life, that I've been through some harrowing experiences, but I've come through them all reasonably well unscathed. Lived to a fairly old age. But as far as thinking, when I was old enough to realize what was going on a little bit, 8, 10 years old, Dwight Eisenhower was the president, and I remember in 1960 when Kennedy was elected, I thought the world was going to fall apart, and that's just how people are. It's what you're used to, and you become comfortable with what you're used to. But the world didn't fall apart, and President Kennedy seemed to be a fairly good guy. But the thing that made a really big impression on me was his assassination, and how it was handled. Not so much the assassination, but how it was handled afterwards. I realized then, I was 16, that things are not all as they seem, as far as our government and the people who control the world. We were certainly, the investigation of that was certainly botched, no matter what you might think about it, conspiracies and so on. We were certainly not given all the facts, and still haven't been today. So this started me thinking that, yeah, things aren't quite what they seem. Maybe you better look a little deeper. As I grew up, grew a little older, I spent some time in the 60s, when the drug, sex, and rock and roll era. And got myself in some trouble, spent some time in jail and that kind of thing. And at some point realized that I was gonna have to do things a little differently, or I was gonna spend the rest of my life in jail. So I had to kind of separate from my friends, the people that I knew, that I'd run around with for years, because they were still doing those things. A number of them wound up dead at a very young age, and a lot of them, spent a good deal of the rest of their life in jail, if not all of it. So my 20s were kind of lonely. Although I'd had to leave my friends behind, and I had to make new friends, and it was not the easiest thing in the world in your 20s. But I did, and I got through that and wound up getting married and having kids, just like everybody else. Buying a house and being a typical suburbanite. But I always still had this suspicion about things, and I listened to, not quite paranoid, but close. I was an early user of public broadcasting. The news there was seemed to be better than what you got on the regular news at night. It seemed to go a little more in depth and things. That I've always known that there was more going on than what you saw in the normal news. In my early 20s, I got a shoulder injury when I was going to college, and that started me doing yoga. And later on, I got into meditation, and I was really glad when this church here, we're still over in the Pink Building, let a Buddhist meditation group use the facility. We met on Sunday nights at that time. And I really got into it a little bit deeper at that time, and began to understand. And I think we had a good, the first reading this morning about the mind is free, although the person he described there is just about a saint. I don't think most of us could come up to that standard, at least I know I could. But the idea is that you can question your own mind, question your own beliefs, and look at what you're thinking and kind of think, well, maybe that's not right, or maybe it is. But each of us comes from, each of us has our own set of experiences and our own life, and so we each develop a unique point of view of life. And some of that may be right, some of it may be wrong, because we're each of us one person. We can't see everything. It's hard to see what the other person sees. That's the thing that I realized. And so I see people that completely are completely, and I'm completely in disagreement with as far as how they approach life, but I have to realize that they had a unique set of circumstances. They didn't have the set of circumstances that I had. In fact, I've been extremely lucky. Part of it, I know, is because I'm a white man. A lot of good people who don't have this white skin don't get the same advantages that I got. I know that what I have is a bit of a privilege. But I know that all these people out here that are going crazy, storming the Capitol and whatnot, that's what they're afraid of, is losing that privilege. That's what drives them. So, anyway, I just, in fact, my brother, he had a knee operation and a heart bypass, and if he had been in better shape, he'd have probably been there on that. And so I have that, I have that in my family, so I have to deal with it to a certain extent. Anyway, that's where my thinking has gotten to be, is that look at all this commotion in the world and say, well, each one of those people had a different experience than I did. I can't change what they think. I can only try to do what I think is best, and hope that enough people do that and do well, and that things turn out okay. The world is sure in turmoil right now, but hopefully it won't last too much longer. All right.
I went and wrote mine out, so I don't go on too long either. And that big long God hymn was one of my choices, as was the sequel, the little reading. So that comes from my background, both of those. But there are a lot of experiences that flavor my current beliefs. And I started out in a Lutheran church, and I refused to go to Sunday school because I thought it was really boring. I liked to go to the church service because I liked singing the liturgy. I thought that was really cool. I eventually agreed to go to confirmation classes and got confirmed. And I ended up liking the service enough that I became a lay reader, the assistant pastor in the service. But also during that time I was searching a lot, and in high school I made friends who went to an independent fundamental Bible church. And after I finished high school, I ended up being saved there and joined the church. And of course it was literal interpretation of the Bible, and I had wanted to learn the Bible. And so I got what I asked for. As a matter of fact, I was so into it that a few years later I went to Philadelphia College of Bible. And they thought their version of Christianity, of course, was the only right version of Christianity. And for those of you who know the word, it was dispensationalism. For those of you who don't worry about it. I had to sign a doctrinal agreement to study there. They didn't want anybody who didn't agree to go there. They wouldn't graduate you if you didn't agree with them. Well, that leads to the next stage in the journey, where I went and took my junior year at a school in Israel. They had an overseas program, and I took classes there and studied biblical and modern history of the Middle East, went on a lot of field trips, took classes in Jewish and Islamic thought. But most of all, the important thing there was the people that I met. I saw a broad spectrum of Christians, including Greek Orthodox, Armenians, who I never saw in the United States, and Egyptian Copts. And they all had very different views on what Christianity was. Then I saw secular Jews, religious Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews, little payas down the side of their face, and praying at the Wailing Wall. And I even met some Muslims who worked in the school kitchen. As far as churches went, I went to, you'll find this interesting, because as you think about it, I went to a charismatic Southern Baptist church, met on the Sabbath on Saturday, because that's when everybody was off from work. And I also went to an Anglican church on Sundays, because I like that liturgy stuff. Now here's where things got really strange. I was standing around one day talking to someone, and I heard this voice that it was just a few words, and I assumed it came from God, because I had no idea, no background of any others to assume where it would come from. Unfortunately, it hadn't happened before or since. But it led to my marrying Scott, whom I met there. Now, how else would a South Dakota farm boy have met a New Jersey girl? So that was where we started out. And also while I was there, someone offered me healing prayer for my eyes, because I was wearing glasses since high school and couldn't read without them. So I said, oh, what the heck, why not? Since I was kind of upending all my beliefs already anyway. And as we were in the library, afterwards I took off my glasses, pulled a book off the shelf, and lo and behold, I was reading it without glasses. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And that lasted about 10 years, and then I needed glasses again. And still do, and I'd really like to have some kind of prayer again for that. It would really be nice. No? Anyway, nothing in my previous training prepared me for any of the stuff that I experienced in Israel, because I was taught that that sort of thing doesn't happen anymore. That was all done in the Bible times. Well, let me get back to that doctrinal statement I signed. And I came home and they kicked me out of Bible college because they didn't believe in healing through prayer, and they labeled me a doctrinal deviant. It's a good thing I didn't tell them about the voice. I mean, it's what they told me then. So, anyway, I married Scott that summer and transferred over to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa for my senior year. And there I completed a bachelor's in English Bible. And at this college, the emphasis was more on following the Holy Spirit in everyday life. I thought, okay, this is let's get away from this literalness a little bit. It was still there, but it was more on lifestyle. And we went to some churches there. One of the charismatic mega churches meets down there, and we belonged to that. It was about 7,000 members or so. And so that was quite the worship service. But we also went to a small Christian fellowship. And as I said, we were still being taught literal interpretation of the Bible. And I started on a Master's of Divinity at ORU that following year. But I only completed one semester, because by this time I was totally confused and really didn't know what I wanted to do next. So, while in the seminary, Scott also was studying there, and he realized he was a Unitarian Christian. And he believed that Jesus had to be human, or else he wouldn't be any good as a example. If he was God, he could just pull anything off he wanted to. So he thought he had to be just human. And of course, this belief got out, understanding got out, and we got us kicked out of both of the churches. Don't want anybody teaching anything they don't agree with. So, for a few years we didn't go to church at all. Then we ended up in Oklahoma City and found the Religious Science Church, which is a part of the New Thought movement. And the understanding there was of the Bible was non-literal, symbolic, and metaphysical. So I added this to my way of thinking. And I became a professional practitioner of religious science. So I was leading the prayer ministry for the church, counseled a bunch of people, practiced meditation, very good stuff. Meditation was the important stuff. And led guided meditations for people. And from their website, it said that religious science teaches that because God is all there is in the universe, not just present in heaven or in assigned deities as believed by traditional teachings, Its power can be used by all humans to the extent that they recognize and align themselves with its presence. So we have a teaching of power you can agree with, which went back to the charismatic movement I had been in. But also, they were teaching pantheism, which I added to my little stack of beliefs. When we came here to Sioux Falls, we looked for a spiritual or religious community, and we went to the Assembly of God for a little while, which is where Scott's mom belonged. And then later, we found All Souls. And here I've explored more ideas from Buddhism, humanism, atheism, paganism, and I've also joined the Theosophical Society, which is programs on a wide variety of religious ideas. And its mission is to encourage open-minded inquiry, sound familiar? Into world religions, philosophy, science, and the arts, in order to understand the wisdom of the ages, respect the unity of all life, and help people explore spiritual self-transformation. I've read a variety of theosophical books on the spiritual makeup of man and the universe, as well as Gnostic Christianity. And they highly recommend meditation, and I've started meditating again. Recently, I found the UU Christian website and joined this group too. It says members of the UU Christian Fellowship, like many Christians and many Unitarian Universalists, hold a variety of religious and spiritual beliefs. They don't hold, largest of them doesn't hold a literal interpretation of Scripture, instead believing that it is a human book written by human hands, which attempts to express the relationship between humanity and that which we call divine. And I agree with this understanding of the Bible. It makes more sense. So basically, I remain a Christian in some sense, but with an emphasis on Jesus as a human example of how to relate to spirit, as well as a pantheist, believing that God and spirit is present everywhere, as well as a believer in miracles, that I think are just the result of using natural laws that we just don't understand yet. I believe spirit can be related to personally and can communicate with us if it feels like it. And it can also be understood as an impersonal power as found in matter and energy. It's like two sides of the same coin. I enjoy studying various theologies and philosophies, but I've also learned during my journey that the most important thing is how we relate to spirit and one another, how we live our lives and how we treat other people in the earth. So that's my spiritual journey, my responsible search for truth and meaning so far. I expect it to keep expanding, and I look forward to seeing where it leads from here.
Where that might lead immediately almost is that we have a chance to speak in a circle after we've had coffee and join Mark and Janet in the circle and describe to them some of our own experiences and how they relate to what we've heard from them this morning. So as we move toward the close of our service, we have an important mention to remember that, as they say, an army marches on its stomach. A church also, I think, marches on the contributions of the members and their generosity. And so we are inviting you to participate in this offertory. The collection plate that proceeds from today's service, the loose change, and half of it will go to the church and half will go towards Reach Literacy Sioux Falls. It's a non-profit providing literacy instruction and experience for adults and youth leaders, and that's the charity which we are helping in the next few weeks. Let us receive this offertory by saying together the words that are printed in your order of service.
We give these gifts freely, we receive these gifts gratefully, we dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another.
Our third hymn, number 354, again, standing as you feel able, and it's We Laugh, We Cry.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. And most of all, we need those friends we call our very own. And we believe in life
Let us extinguish the chalice with the words printed in the order of service, which we'll say together.
The chalice is extinguished, but the light goes with us out into the world. Yes, the one that was here.